Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. So today's video is my 4th Christmas craft DIY for my Christmas craft week going on. I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm just having a little bit of a dance with my arms. Okay, I'm gonna stop that. So today's video is gonna be a Poundland DIY video. I absolutely love to do these on my channel. Basically, I just go into Poundland, see some things and see how I can DIY them, improve them. Sometimes I make a complete DIY, sometimes I just upcycle them. So today I have 3 different crafts for you to maybe go and try out yourselves. If you do try them, by the way, make sure to go and tag me on Instagram. I'll leave that down in the description down below. I try to repost your DIYs on my stories and then add you to my highlights, which is always a fun thing to do. So yeah, I'm just gonna get straight on in today's video.
So for the first DIY, I actually used this long garland, which is basically called make your own wreath, but it's a long piney type garland, which is about 5 meters in length, I'm not gonna lie to you. But I went and unraveled it and then folded it in half and cut it straight down the middle. In order to make each individual kind of wreath thing going on, I just twirled it round into a loop like so, and then with the rest of the kind of long strand, I just folded it up into my hand and then wrapped it in and around the wreath. Now I did this because I wanted it to be a lot thicker than the first original kind of like circle, and I actually went around this around 2 times, and that's how I made the thickness. So it's about 2.5 meters worth of this garland in the first one, and then I just took the end of it, twirled it around until I had a mini wreath. I did this 4 times over with 2 bundles of that, which I got from Poundland. Next I moved on with this candy stripe ribbon, and this is by the brand Beresford. That is a brand that I love to use for my ribbons because they're most like high quality ribbons that are kind of around, that aren't like, you know, break the bank kind of balance. They're roughly around £1 per meter in the 25mm range, so you can obviously find them in your haberdashery or maybe even in Hobbycraft, eBay, something like that. I tied a loop around the wreath and tied it at the top, and then I just tied a little bow and kind of cut that off, sealing in the ends with a lighter just to make sure that the edges weren't going to be fraying anywhere. Next I took a needle and thread and just put a couple of stitches in and around that loop that I put on the wreaths, and this was just to make sure that they weren't going to be slipping and sliding all the way around the wreaths, so that they would just stay in place in one area. Once I had done that, I then took some hot glue and hot glued the bow over the kind of stitches that I made. Obviously if you didn't want to stitch, you could just hot glue this kind of and bunch it together, but I like to stitch things to just find it quicker and easier, so I went ahead and did that. Once the bows were then all attached, I then just cut off some of the greenery underneath where like the little bow bits were sitting, just so that they sit a little bit kind of flatter. Once that was done and the other 3 were done in the exact same way, I just popped them onto my kitchen cabinet, and this is what they look like. I absolutely love them. They're not 100% straight, anything like that. I've just popped them up for this video's purpose because I'm not actually putting out my Christmas decorations just yet, but I did want you to kind of have a feel of how I envision them in my kitchen. So moving on to the second DIY, I actually took these paintbrushes, which I found in the DIY section, and the reason that I like these was because they obviously had the wooden handles, but they had the cream bristles down the bottom. So I took some of this rustoleum chalk paint in the colour Firebrick. This is my favourite vintage red chalk paint for this time of year. I don't know what it is, something about it just screams vintage Christmas to me. So I went ahead and painted the handles of all of the paintbrushes in the chalk paint, and then once I had done that and that had all dried, I then took some of the chalk white coloured and I just put dots all over the entirety of the paintbrush handles. On the smallest and the largest ones, I did lots of mini dots, big dots all over, and then the middle one I did just a few bigger dots so that all the dots were different kind of patterns going on, but they were still dots, you know? I then took some of this fleece felt ribbon, which I've had in my craft room for absolute years, but I know you can find some in your local haberdashery, something like that, because they have it in mine, so it might just be worth like checking in there to see if you can find some of this. But I just wrapped it around the paintbrushes where the metal met the wooden handles, just so I could like imitate the fluff around Santa's hat. Once I had done that, I then took some offcuts of that and then shaped that into like little leaf shapes to make the little Santa's mustaches. I then took a little beige pom-pom and then kind of organised it like that. I didn't really like it without the kind of colour for the face, so I actually took some wool felt, popped on a little semicircle of that, and then popped all the stuff back on it using some hot glue just to secure all the bits down into place. I then took some acrylic paint, and in my dot tool I just made 2 little dots on the wool felt just by dipping it in the lid of the acrylic paint, so I didn't kind of waste any, because obviously I only needed a few dots worth. To make the Santa's glasses, I actually just used these little bauble hooks. I swirled it around a pen on one side, swirled it around a pen on the other side to make these glasses. The shot was really annoyingly out of focus, but that's what I did. It's really, really simple. I then coloured it in with a gold metallic leafing pen, and once that was fully dry, I then hot glued it over the eyes on each and every one of the paintbrushes. For the middle one, I wanted to make it slightly different, so I actually just took a little felt heart and just hot glued that down on there. Not necessary, I just felt like doing something a little bit different. And then I just took some chalk pastel kind of shavings and buffed away, blushed up the noses, added a little bit of blush onto the Santa's faces to make them look real cute. And that was it for this one. So this is what the little paintbrushes turned out like. I think they're absolutely adorable. They would be another great addition to a Christmas wreath, onto a garland, maybe even a DIY gift for a DIY fan. I don't know, I just love them. I think it's really effective, and thanks to Pinterest for this idea. So moving on to the third and final DIY for today's video, I just used this sign, which obviously I found in Poundland. I then decided to remove all the glitter, even though I quite liked it the way it was. I felt like I wanted to do something a little bit more muted down, a little bit more rustic farmhouse. So I just started scraping off the glitter, which was fairly easy actually, and I just used a pair of scissors to do so. I actually started off with a nail file and that worked really well, but these scissors were really, really like kind of sturdy, and it just scraped it off a load better. So I put a layer of acrylic paint onto the sign, and that was just to seal in the glitter, and then I left that to dry. And once that was dry, I then did a layer or two of the white chalk paint that I used in the previous DIY. I then printed out this little kind of sign type thing on some tracing paper, and I just wrote out the word old-fashioned reindeer sleigh rides onto Word and then just printed it out basically. I also added a few little words in down the bottom, which basically said like hats, gloves, mittens, all of that required. Once I had that printed out, I then added some Mod Podge onto the front of the sign and then just stuck the kind of tracing paper down on top, and then just pressed it out from the middle just to remove as many bubbles as I could. A few air bubbles did remain in mine because I wasn't the best at doing this, but I mean, it's not bad. I wasn't mad at it. Usually I use tissue paper, but the tracing paper worked out really well, and I think I may use that in future projects. So in order to make it look a bit more like wood, I just made some black lines down with a black Posca pen, then added a few little bits of texture just by doing loads of lines and then smudging them in a little bit to give it a wood-like texture. I then took some white chalk paint on my paintbrush and just buffed that over some of the writing to make it look a little bit more faded and stuff like that. Then I took some dark brown colour, which is actually the colour I used on the Santa's eyes, and I just buffed that all the way around the edges and then shaded all those lines that I did like vertically to make it look like there was a bit of shadow there, and it was a bit like shiplap or like tongue and groove palette style, a bit more rustic looking. So once I had all of that kind of shading in place, I just put a few more dots and stuff around the sign just to make it a little bit more old and rustic. I then did the exact same down on the little kind of stalk, stem, stake thingy. So yeah, that looks a little bit rustic too. I then decided I was going to add a bit of twine, because what is a farmhouse kind of DIY without a bit of twine? I go twine mad at Christmas, and I'm almost out of it to be honest, but I just wrapped a few layers of that around the bottom of the sign, hot gluing as I went. Then added on these little rustic jingle bells and tied it off like into a bow. Because obviously I only had one end on this twine, I did actually just like tie it round in the bow and then cut off a bit of the excess off the end, and then when hot gluing the two like bow loops in place, I then just added half of that end back onto it so it looked like a proper put together bow. I probably could have just cut it and then put on a bow to make my life easier, but I apparently don't like to do that and I like to take the long way around. So this is how the sign turned out. I am absolutely in love with it. I think layered up with a few extra pieces, a bit of faux fur, something like that, it could look really nice and expensive. And I just think it looks really, really kind of realistic in the wood texture, you know, far away.
So that is the end of today's video. I hope you have enjoyed it. Let me know which of the 3 DIYs was your favourite, whether it was the sign, the mini wreaths, or it was the paintbrushes. I'm actually obsessed with all of them, but I think I really do like this sign. I don't know, there's something about it that's just a bit fun, and I love the mini wreaths. I've wanted them for so long, so I feel like I've looked at them for like about 5 years on Pinterest before making them myself. And then the paintbrushes as well, I'm really happy with the way they turned out. So to be honest, I shouldn't say the sign is my favourite, I should say they're all my favourite. But anyway, I hope you have enjoyed today's video. The sun is now coming out and it's blinding my eyes, so I'm gonna go, but I hope you are enjoying my craft videos so far. I do have another DIY tomorrow, then a little come shop with me, what's in Wednesday on Wednesday. We're gonna be looking around B&M, I think, either B&M or Home Bargains, depending on which one I feel like editing first, because I have them both filmed now. Yeah, so I'm going to be filming another DIY tomorrow, and then one on Thursday and Friday as well, and then craft week will be over. But rest assured, the craft videos will carry on all the way up till Christmas, because I'm a very crafty person and it's basically what I do on the tubes. So yeah, hopefully you have a fantastic day, and I will see you very soon for another video. Bye! What else did I do? I don't remember. I actually can't remember what I did. What? How is this possible? I just did it. Oh. I made a sign, paintbrushes, and something else. A sign, some paintbrushes. Oh, mini wreaths! Wow, that honestly took me more than 2 minutes to remember. I could have just gone upstairs in that time. Okay, I'll have to do the outro again.